in the department that goes out and actually does the inspections for compliance with wage and hour laws in the state of California. They are responsible for enforcing the provision of the Labor Code and the Industrial Welfare Commission laws. The Bureau of Field Enforcement is the actual bureau that has the investigators that you're going to see out on the streets, visiting your locations, sometimes conducting inspections randomly, so you're not going to know they're going to show up. I can tell you right now that most of the time, inspections are generated by complaints that are filed in the office. Somebody came in, somebody said, this employer's not paying me overtime, they're not giving me rest and meal periods, they're not keeping accurate records. In that case, we're going to send an investigator out, and they're going to do an investigation to see if, in fact, those allegations are true or not. Okay? Now, record-keeping requirements, as she indicated before, the FLSA requires you to keep records. The state of California requires you to keep records as well. And the records that we require are the employee name, address, occupation, social security number, birth date. If under 18, we want to see that there's a work permit on file for the minor worker. Beginning and ending time of each work period. It's important for you to maintain accurate time records. One of the biggest problems I see is that if an employee comes into the office, they're going to say, you know, I work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 years. Okay? I ask them, did you ever take a vacation? They say, never. Did you ever call in sick? Never. Okay? The next thing I do is I go to the employer and I say, can I see your time records? I don't have any. Well, guess what just happened? That employer is going to be liable for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 3 years. Okay? It's important for you to maintain good records. That's the best way to protect yourself against somebody filing a claim that may not be true. Now, part of that is that if you're going to have a good time record, the time record is going to reflect a 30-minute lunch break. The difference between the federal and the state is that they do not require rest and meal periods. The state does. Okay? So what does that mean? That means that for every 4 hours worked, you have to give a minimum of 10-minute break. Okay? If they work 5 or more, you have to give a 10-minute break plus a 30-hour lunch break, 30-minute lunch break. Okay? You can give more, but you can't give less.
Without pay.
Without pay. The meal period is without pay. 10-minute break is with pay. Okay? Now, if you work 8 hours, of course, you're going to have 2 10-minute breaks and 1 30-minute break, right? If we look at your time cards and we see a meal break of 28 minutes, that's a violation. Okay? If we see a meal break of 29 minutes, that's a violation. So you have to be very careful. Now what the law says is that you as an employer are only required to allow and to permit the employee to take a rest and meal period. So you don't have to hold their hand, you don't have to take them out, and you don't have to make sure that they're taking a rest and meal period. That's important because in the past, the law required that you as an employer verify that they took a meal period. They changed the law, it's different now, so all you have to do is just allow and permit. Okay? Do you have any questions about that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat it again?
เข้าใจไหมคะเขาบอกว่ากฎหมายของสเตทเปลี่ยนนะคะแต่ก่อนเอาปัจจุบันเลยคุณถ้าเกิดว่าคุณสเกจพนักงานที่เข้ามาทำงานคุณจำเป็นจะต้องสเกจเวลาเบรกด้วยแต่เขาจะเทคหรือไม่เทคนั้นเป็นสิทธิ์ของคุณนะคะแค่ว่าต้อง allow ให้เขาเทคเบรก
เทคเวลาเบรกนี่หมายถึง10 นาทีหรือ 30 นาที
each break
This one is
rest break, right?
10 minutes or 30 minutes
Meal break.
meal break
The meal break is 30 minutes.
Coffee break, 10 minutes, 15
Yeah.
minutes.
10-minute coffee
เดี๋ยว
break.
เสร็จแล้วเราจะมา go over
30-minute lunch break, okay? Now the lunch break has to be recorded on the time records. So it has to reflect on the time records. If it's not reflected on the time records, the employee can say that they never took a lunch break. required to be recorded.
So that means rest break, we don't need to record.
Right, yeah. So you just need to make sure they're clocking in and out for lunch. That's it.
Because if, I have a 4 years of training about the rest break.
Okay.
So what kind of thing that I can change, what kind of rest break?
Well, you're not going to have that recorded anywhere. Okay, but you should have something that states that they are allowed and permitted to take the rest break.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, in other words, what I tell employers to do is right above the time clock,
Yes.
they should put a notice that you are required to take 30-minute lunch pursuant to this labor code section. Also, you are required to take a 10-minute break period for every 4 hours work. If you do that, you're going to have less of a problem with somebody filing that kind of claim. If somebody files a claim for no rest or meal period, then the employer has to pay 1 hour per day that the employee did not take a break, 1 hour per day that the employee did not take a 30-minute lunch break at the regular rate of pay. And they can file a claim for 3 years. So that's a lot of money. Okay? So it's record keeping. I stress record keeping is very important for you. Okay? If you have any questions or problems with your records, let me know. I'll look at them, I'll let you know what you're doing right, I'll let you know what you're doing wrong. Okay?
After this, he's gonna have sit down with you because we have a case going on
Oh, you
in
have
the
a-
court here about the rest break also.
Oh,
But
you-
but he have a record, punch in, punch out, even rest break.
Okay, but somebody already filed a claim
Yeah,
with
we have
our office?
no, yeah, somebody filed.
But not from your office. Actually, we got a lawsuit.
We got a lawsuit.
Oh, okay, so you have a private attorney that's
Actually, the employee getting what is that public attorney.
They have the attorney, but can the owner have a private, I mean like public attorney?
um, it's a civil matter, so there would be no public
We
attorney
went to
assigned.
we went to mediation one time already,
Yeah.
but now the next one is the court.
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to make sure you hire an attorney that's well versed in labor law.
Okay.
There are a lot of attorneys out there that I've seen come to our office that represent employers, and they don't know anything about labor law.
But we have all the evidence on
And
this one.
it's really sad to see that because you pay a lot of money
Yes.
for representation that doesn't help you. Okay?
9,
So it's very important to know that.
Do you have anybody in mind?
I can't refer anybody, I'm
Okay.
sorry, but what I could do is just advise you to make sure that when you talk to an attorney, ask them, what kind of experience do you have in labor law? Okay? That's very important. Now, another thing that you need to think about is when you look at your time records, and then you're going to have payroll records, right? Payroll records have to match. Okay? Time records better match the payroll records, and the amount paid better match the hours on the time cards. If it doesn't, what's going to happen is your records could be impeached at a hearing because now they're inaccurate. The law requires you to have accurate records. Okay? It seems like a lot of work, but if you get into the practice, trust me, later on you're going to look at the records and you're going to know exactly how much money you paid to each employee. Now, some people work in the garment industry. Some people work in car washes. They get paid by the cars. They get paid by the piece that they sew. If you work on piece rate, you also have to maintain accurate piece rate tickets, piece rate records, okay? All of you own restaurants, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that should not apply to you, right? Okay. Any questions? I'm sorry.
A little question on the time card. Are they required to sign their time card at the end of the week or don't have to?
They're not required, but it's always a good idea. And the reason for that is because you can at least say that they looked at the time card, you give them a chance to find any problem with it. They didn't tell you about it, they signed it, they agreed to the hours, okay? Now, there's no law against you clocking everybody in. They don't have to clock themselves in. But the time you clock them in has to be accurate, That's the only thing the law says, okay? It's always a good idea to let them clock themselves in so they don't complain later that the boss was clocking me in and I don't know what to do with the time card, right? Any other questions? So, it's important that on the time card you have the pay period that it covers, the employee first name and last name, and the employee number. It doesn't have to be their social security number. It could just be an employee number that you assign to that employee. Now, what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for failure to pay minimum wage. We're paying less than $8 an hour. Failure to maintain workers' compensation insurance. That's a very important one, okay? The law says that if you do not have workers' compensation insurance, you cannot have employee labor. So what does that mean? That means that you as the owner could work by yourself, but you can't have any employees, okay? If we go in there and we find that you're working with no workers' comp, the citation could be $1,500 per employee, or we can go back an entire year, use a formula that's based on the amount of workers' comp premiums you should have paid, multiply that by 10, and the amount is very high. We get citations of over $200,000, okay? Child labor, of course, child labor, you need to make sure that if you have minors working, that there's a work permit on file. Unlicensed contractors, you have people working in the trades, building homes that don't have proper licenses, right? You have people who contract to do garment who don't have licenses. So we're going to look for things like that. Farm labor contractors, like I just said, car washes, manufacturers, failure to provide a rest and meal period. We talked about that. And failure to provide complete and accurate itemized wage statements. Okay? Is it against the law to pay cash? Does anybody know?
We don't know.
What do you think? Is it against the law to pay cash?
No.
You're right, it's not. Is it against the law to pay cash and not give an itemized wage statement?
Yes.
That's where everybody makes a mistake, okay? You can pay cash, but you need to give them a wage statement, the check stub. If you don't, the penalty is $250 every time you pay that wage. If you have 30 employees, you pay them every week, right? 30 times 52 times 250. That's the penalty. Okay? Next. Now, recently, what the Labor Commissioner did is she started a new unit called the Criminal Investigation Unit. That unit has 6 police officers statewide. I'm one of them, okay? I know. Too much work.
Just remember his face.
I have to go from Sacramento all the way to El Centro near Mexico. So what is our duty? What do we do? I mean, what's different between us and the inspector that goes out to talk to you? Well, the difference is that we're going to be arresting you. Okay? We're going to be citing you into criminal court. We're not going to be giving you a citation and then you go through the administrative process and then you get a judgment filed against you and then nothing happens. No. You're going to end up in court. You're going to file criminal charges. You can do jail time or you could do probation. We're going to serve subpoenas. We're going to execute search warrants, inspection warrants. So, which type of employer are we looking for? Trust me, we're not going to go out all the time because there's only 6 of us. But only the most egregious employers, those employers who fail to constantly obey the law, are going to be the ones that are going to be visited by us. So if you see me coming to your door and you didn't call me,
You run.
not a good idea. So this is what I'm looking for. Grand theft of labor. Okay, that's a felony. You could get jail time for that. So what is grand theft? Grand theft is anything over $950. So if you owe more than $950 of wages, to the economy. All right? Public Works. Public Works are projects that are funded more than 50% by government agencies. This is in construction. A lot of times contractors go out there to get these jobs, but rather than pay the employees what they're supposed to pay, which is a wage that's determined by the type of industry they're working in the trade, they keep the money themselves. And they just pay them the minimum wage. That's a kickback. That's a felony. And of course, theft of labor. There's a labor code section for that also, but that's a misdemeanor. Petty theft is anything less than $950. Okay? That's a misdemeanor. Wage statements, check stubs. If you fail to provide those, that's a misdemeanor. Misclassification of employees. If I go into your restaurant and you tell me you have no employees, you don't need workers' comp, right? And I'll say, but I see 12 people working. No, they're all independent contractors. That's misclassification. They're your employees. You need to cover them. All right? Unlicensed farm labor contractor, you don't need to worry about that. Access to places of labor. Labor Code Section 90 grants us the authority to enter your place of business and conduct an inspection. If you refuse, that's a misdemeanor. Okay? Again, workers' compensation insurance. I can tell you right now that every DA in California is looking for these types of violations. DA is district attorney. And the reason is because the insurance company is funding them, giving them money to prosecute these cases. Okay? It's good to have workers' comp. If I go out and I find that you don't have workers' comp insurance, I'm going to issue you a stop order. What a stop order is, it's telling you you can no longer work. No more labor, no more labor. You can work by yourself, but the employees have to go home. Okay? Another thing that they're looking at this year is individual liability. This is something we didn't try before. Many times you go into a car wash, the owner is hardly ever there sometimes. You as a restaurant owner, maybe you're never there, right? So you put your manager in charge. The manager does things that you don't want to. You think everything is okay, but it's not. We're going to go after the manager, and we're going to file charges against him, and we're going to put him in jail. Okay? If we determine that you didn't do anything. Or we might just go after both of you. All right? Yes?
I just want to add something in terms of individual liability ของของ state เขาบอกว่าถ้าเกิดว่าเจ้าของร้านไม่อยู่นะคะ liability ที่เขาคิดเรื่อง penalty หรือว่าค่าแรงต่างๆเขาสามารถ name individual คือ manager ได้นะคะเช่นเดียวกับ state เหมือนกันเรา name บุคคลที่รับพนักงาน manager ส่วนใหญ่ manager จะได้ duty ตรงนี้นะคะสามารถรับพนักงานเทรนพนักงานได้เรา stretch liability ไปถึง manager ถ้าเกิดในกรณีที่เจ้าของร้านไม่อยู่เรา name เขานะคะ
We just had a case at car wash recently in Long Beach where we found that the manager was really controlling the wages and hours of the employees more than the owner. So we filed charges against the manager in that case. Now what this says is pretty much what we were talking about, that any person who acts on behalf of the employer violates the labor law is going to be liable. Okay? That's the individual liability that I'm talking about. Now, who is a person? Well, a person could be anybody who controls the wages and hours of the employees. Anybody who says you have to come in at this time, you have to leave at this time. This is how much I'm going to pay you. I'm not going to pay you this. You can't take a lunch break. You can take a rest break. That's somebody who's controlling you, right? There's enough control there for this to apply this one. I don't think it applies to restaurants. I don't think I've seen it yet. But it's something for you to know, because sometimes if you're going to do that, you have to be careful and at least know what the managers are doing. Okay? Now, overtime violations, meal period violations, all of that falls under Labor Code Section 558. In unless there's an agreement. You can't make the employee work through the meal period. If you have an agreement, it has to be in writing and it has to be signed by both of you. You can't prevent them from taking a lunch break. You can't not notify them. You have to notify them that they have a right to take a rest period. And you have to make sure that the workload isn't so much that they cannot take a rest period. A lot of times employees say, you know, yeah, they're supposed to take a lunch break, but there's too much work. I don't have time. And then they don't have anybody to cover for them. You see a lot of that in the gas stations. You know how you show up to the gas station, there's only one person there. That person can't take a rest period, a meal period, until there's a time for them to do it, right? Well, there's an exemption that we grant to them, so they can actually do it that way. Now, if they work 5 hours or less, you don't have to give them a 30-minute lunch break. Okay, 5 hours or less. If they work 6 hours, they can say, I don't want to take a 30-minute lunch break, but you have to have an agreement in writing. Okay? As long as you have that, you're okay. So what's the penalty? Well, if you don't pay somebody overtime, if you don't pay them the minimum wage, the penalty could be either $50 per person per pay period or $100 per person per pay period. Okay? Now, the amount that we cite is going to always be an amount that's going to be sufficient to recover the wages that are due. All right? Now, 1197.1 just says that, you know, as an employer, you can't pay anybody less than the minimum wage, which is $8 an hour, right? You have to be careful because the federal minimum wage is different, right? So it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to the state, it's $8 an hour. If you're talking to the federal, it's a different amount. Under the federal statutes, they calculate overtime after 40 hours a week. State, it's after 8 in the workday or after 40 in a work week. So if you work 4 10-hour days, that's 40 hours, right? Is there any overtime due? You work 4 10-hour days, how would you pay that employee? How many regular hours? How many overtime hours? So there's 4 10-hour days.
32 regular.
Right. It's 32 regular, 8 hours overtime. Right? Do you see that?
Each day.
Every day. So you have to look at it both ways. You have to look at it by the week, and you have to look at it by the day. All right? Now, say for instance, if they work 7 days in a row, okay? 7 days in a row. They work less than 40 hours. What the law says is on the 7th day, the first 8 hours are time and a half. Okay? Anything after 8 on the 7th day is double time. Right? So remember that. If you work more than 12 hours in the workday, it's double time. I know that sometimes employees in the restaurant business work more than 12 hours in a day. If they do, it's going to be double time. Okay?
Maybe Silicon can explain.
Yes, please.
I'm just gonna translate it.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, please.
กฎหมายเขาคือทำงานถ้าเกิน7 วันวันที่ 7 จะต้อง on 7th day has to be a time and a half right?
Yeah, first 8 hours.
ชั่วโมง8 ชั่วโมงแรกของวันที่ 7 จะต้องจ่ายค่าแรงที่อัตราเท่าครึ่งถ้าเกิดว่าทำงานเกิน12 ชั่วโมงต่อวันชั่วโมงที่เกิน12จะต้องเป็นที่2 เท่า double time after 12 hours
Every day.
ถ้าเกิดว่าพนักงานทำงานเกิน12 ชั่วโมงต่อ1 วันชั่วโมงที่เกิน12จะต้องเป็นที่2 เท่า double time
Friday, but next week's schedule starting on he working on Sunday until Thursday, and he off Friday, Saturday.
Right, and so, see, the first thing we're gonna ask you when we go in is, what is your work week?
Okay.
And we're gonna base it on your work week.
Work week, not
Your work week.
considered.
Yeah, because a work week is 7 consecutive days. Okay? So we're gonna base it on your work week, and also your work day. A work day is 24 consecutive hours. Sometimes you can start at 9 o'clock at night and work into the next day. Well, what happened is now you have hours for one day here, hours for another day over here. But if you worked 8 hours in the day before, there's overtime over here. Because now you're breaking the days up. You're going into Monday through Tuesday, so you worked 12 hours on Monday. Okay, so you have to remember that. Because, say for instance, you're a janitor. You work from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Well, you know, that's, what is that, 6 hours? But it's 3 hours on Monday and 3 hours on Tuesday. Now, if you're going to do the same thing again, that's going to be 6 hours every day that you're actually working. Do you understand that?
จะลองเขียนบนกระดานให้เพราะว่าเดี๋ยวถ้าทางจะยังไม่เข้าใจนะ Yeah, maybe you can explain over there better. Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, you have 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Okay, let's do it this one. 12, 8, 6, and 9 o'clock. Okay? Now, let's pretend for this example that this is 12 midnight. Okay? Not 12 noon, 12 midnight. All right. This employee starts here and works all the way to here. Here, it's Monday. Here, it's Tuesday. So, based on this, how many hours did he work on Monday?
3.
How many hours did he work on Tuesday?
3.
Okay. Now, based on he's going to say I worked 6 hours that day. No, he didn't. He worked 3 here and he worked 3 here. See, that's what we're going to look at. Your work day and your work week. Okay? Now, say, for instance, he comes back. It's still Tuesday, right? He's going to rest from here to here. Remember, it's still Tuesday, right? And he's going to work again up to here. It's still Tuesday. So now what do you have? You have 3 hours here, and you have 3 hours here. So if you look at it that way, he did work 6 hours on Tuesday. He's just splitting it into 2 days. All right, so that's the way we're going to look at it. You really don't have to worry about it because in the restaurant business, unless you have a split shift, I don't think you do this too much, right? Do you understand this example? Okay.
Thank you.
So it's trust me, it's hard to understand sometimes. even I can't understand.
You mentioned about split shift. If you do the split shift in 8 hour a day, then 4 hours, so they get the rest break and meal break, and then anything else on top.
Well, okay, a split shift is considered anything more than an hour. Like say for instance,
Oh yeah.
a lunch hour is 1 hour. So we can say that a break in the day that's an hour or less is not a split shift. But a break in the day that's an hour or more is a split shift, because now you split the shift for a period that's longer than a legitimate lunch hour. Okay?
So that employee will get 4 hour split shift so that employee will get a rest break, 30 minutes? Or 10 minutes,
Yeah,
10 minutes?
say for instance he works 4 hours,
Uh-huh.
he gets a 10-minute break in there.
Okay.
When he gets a split shift, he works another 4 hours, he gets a 10-minute break.
So how
He
about,
doesn't need a lunch break.
okay, so no meal break required.
Yeah, because he's going to take it during the split shift.
Okay, understand.
Okay? Yes.
So the split shift, suppose people come at 11 and get off at 3. Can you tell them to come back at 6 so that at 3 hours we don't have to pay any?
Yeah, what happens is if there's a split shift, you have to pay a split shift premium, which is calculated based on the amount of money they make. If they're making a minimum wage, it's probably going to be 1 hour of the regular rate of pay.
So we pay 1 hour more.
Yeah, for the split
Suppose
shift.
we send them home for 3 hours, then we pay 1 hour.
Yeah,
4 hours.
as a split shift. Yeah. Because what you're doing now is you're requiring them to leave for 3 hours and then they have to come back. Yes.
So I'm sorry, I don't get. So we have to pay them for
A premium, a split shift
premium.
premium.
Can you explain premium? I don't get it.
Split shift premium is a premium that is paid to any employee who is required to work a split shift. A split shift is anything more than an hour.
Okay, for example, if he got 8 hours that day, 40 hours a week. So what is the premium?
The premium would be 1 hour at the regular rate of pay.
Okay, so we pay split shift. We pay 1 hour for the
Yeah.
premium.
Per
That's,
day.
but you know, sometimes a split shift could be more than 3 hours. Sometimes a split shift, you know, could be 2 hours or something.
There is a restaurant that close between 3 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 2 hours. So they require to pay 1 hour.
Still have to pay.
Yeah,
Yes.
as a
Even though
regular rate,
Yes.
$8.
So
That's
You
a split
pay
shift.
to the same employee that comes back.
Right.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
If they
So-
start in the morning,
And that'll be paid at the
1 hour.
that'll be paid at the end of their work period. I mean at their pay period, regular pay period. On the check stub it'll say split shift premium.
oh, so but that one won't count as OT, right?
It won't work out as OT now.
That's a regular hour,
Right.
1 p.m. That's going to be over the hour.
Yeah.
So that's a split.
Yeah. Yeah, it won't apply to overtime because overtime only applies to the hours that are worked. Okay?
okay, there's a question over here.
Yes.
She just want to a little bit more clarification. สมมติถ้านั้นพนักงานคนเดียวกันทำงานตั้งแต่ 11 โมงไปถึง 3 โมงแล้วเบรก 2 ชั่วโมง 3 โมงกลับมาที 5 โมงใช่ไหมคุณจะต้องจ่ายเขา 1 ชั่วโมง อันนี้คือ state law นะคะ ไม่ใช่ของไม่ใช่ federal จะต้องจ่ายเขาเบรก 2 ชั่วโมงแต่คุณต้องจ่ายเขา regular hour 1 ชั่วโมงถ้าเกิดว่าพนักงานคนเดิมกลับมาตอน 5 โมง
แต่ว่า
ให้เขาเบรกได้ก่อนแต่จ่ายแค่ชั่วโมงใช่เบรกอีกชั่วโมงก็ได้
3 ชั่วโมงก็ได้
Oh,
ต้องจ่ายชั่วโมง
So let's say that if the restaurant closed in between,
แต่เขาเบรก
that's
ได้
the
3
same thing.
เราจ่าย
Yes.
ชั่วโมงได้ก็จะน้อยชั่วโมง
อะไรคะ not under our agreement
Yes. See, so I wanted to make sure that you understood that there's a difference between our
Right.
laws. Okay, because
That's why I want to clarify.
Because my question is, we open for lunch. Okay, no, we open for breakfast and lunch, and we close, and we reopen again at the dinner.
right.
So that means we have to pay employee who work in the morning and at night
Yes.
1 hour
Yes.
individual.
Yes. Because you split their shift.
Actually,
They have no control over the fact that you close the restaurant, right? So it's not
The best thing to
their
go
fault.
home, go home and
and get a different employee
If you want to avoid that, have a different
เอาคน
shift,
ใหม่มาท
first shift and second shift,
ำ
and
ซั
then
พคนใหม่
you don't have that split shift premium.
We can go on. Okay. We can move on.
Okay.
She's gonna ask, yeah.
Okay, we already talked about this minimum to you. Or you can pay weekly if you want. Now, you know, a lot of
ถ้าเกิดว่าจ่ายเดือนนี้ต้องจ่ายอย่างน้อยเดือนละสองครั้งต่อเดือนสองครั้งต่อเดือน
okay.
คือจ่ายทุกปีไม่ได้ใช่ไหมคะ
ได้อย่างน้อย
What about people who have a salary still twice a month
twice a month
we still pay twice a month
Only employees who are exempt are not required to be paid twice a month. Okay? So you have to be an exempt employee. You could be a salaried employee
but still have to
and
pay
still have to get overtime. Okay? A non-exempt employee always gets overtime. An exempt employee doesn't get overtime.
สมมติ12คือค่ะ
So what's the penalty for paying below minimum wage? $100 every time you do that. Okay? Now, you really, it could add up real fast. Okay? Second violation is $250 every time you do that. Now, again, the citations are going to be sufficient to cover the amount of wages due. So you always have to please remember that just make sure that they're getting paid for all the hours they're working. Okay? Next. Itemized wage statement. We talked about that. What is an accurate itemized wage statement? Who knows what belongs on an itemized wage statement? Does anybody know? There should be at least 9 things on the wage statement. Can you go to the next one? This is what we're going to look for. This is what has to be on your check stubs. Okay? You could generate this on your computer. You don't need to buy a special checkbook. You don't need to do any of that. As long as it includes the gross wages earned, total hours worked, piece rates if they work piece rate, all of the deductions, net wages, the pay period for which the wages were earned, the employee's name, last 4 digits of social security number or employer ID number. Okay? The name and address of the legal entity, who is the employer, and all applicable hourly rates and corresponding hours. If you have this information on your check stubs, you don't ever have to worry about getting cited for it. Okay? Any questions about this?
How about paying cash? What do you looking for?
You can pay cash, no problem. Just give them this.
Need all that on.
Yeah. You can put the cash in an envelope and say, here you go, but here's a check stub that goes along with the cash. Okay?
but it doesn't mean once you แบบว่าหักเงินเข้าไว้แล้วอย่าง Federal State Social Security Medicare หมายความว่าเราให้เขาตอนที่เราให้เงินสดเขาแล้วเราบอกว่าเราดีดักเขาไม่ได้หมายความว่าเราจะฟรีดีนะเราจะต้องรีพอร์ตไปที่ EDD ที่แคชที่เขาพูดถึงเนี่ยหมายถึงอย่างนั้นถ้า What if they don't deduct all this ก็ผิดกฎหมายเขาเกี่ยวเนี่ยเขาบอก we have to have all these
You have to have all that.
Even we pay cash and sometimes employees, they don't want us to deduct anything. We just tell them we have
Then on
to.
the check stub, you're going to put 0, 0, 0.
Oh, we can do that. And the
But
responsibility
you,
will
but
be
you
there.
should still report the employee to EDD. Okay?
ก็กลับมาที่เดิมก็คือ payroll นะต้องเข้าใจตรงนี้ด้วยนะคะ
Because if
ก็
you
คือจะ
don't,
ต้องทำ payroll
EDD always
เรา
looks,
สามารถจ่ายแค
always,
ชได้แต่ต้องอยู่ใน payroll
yeah, EDD is always going to look for the employers who do not pay with the check stub. You know why? Because they're not paying taxes. And if you're not paying taxes, they're going to come after you really hard, okay? So as long as you report the wages to EDD, you give them a check stub with 0 deductions, you're in compliance, you're fine. All right? Any other questions?
Suppose at the end, suppose 1099 at the end of the year, they didn't pay tax. We report to 1096.
Then you
Do we have
report,
to be
yeah, you report
responsible?
them as 1099s to EDD.
Even though they didn't pay, IRS will come back to us.
IRS will if
it saves you a lot of time and a lot of effort if you don't 1099 employees. If they don't want to pay taxes, just report everything they earn and let them worry about it later.
Cash employee, do we have to buy worker compensation for them?
Any employee that works for you has to be covered under workers' comp,
if they don't have any social.
even if they don't have social. Because this is what the district attorney is looking for. He's looking for those employers who have, let's say, 15 employees, but they're only paying premiums for 3. Okay? So what do you have? You have workers' comp, but you're not covering 12 employees. So what does that become? It becomes a felony. It becomes workers' comp premium fraud. Okay? So if you have an employee, the law requires that you cover them with workers' compensation insurance.
This law may be like benefit the insurance company more than employer and employee.
It does, but okay, here's an example. If I come to your business and you don't have workers' comp, say for instance you only have 1 employee, I'm going to issue you a citation for $1,500, right? But if an employee got injured and you didn't have workers' comp, the citation is $10,000. So you know, the money you're saving now, you're going to end up paying a lot more later. So. Yes.
Like the training, the first day on the job, do we have, they're not our employee yet. They just training. We don't know we're gonna hire this person or not. And we need to be on the workman comp.
If they're not on, what's going to happen is that quarterly, you're going to report payroll to the insurance company. They're going to earn some wages as trainees. As long as you report it quarterly, you're fine. Because workers' comp will cover them. Okay?
But we don't have to call the workman's comp and say, hey, I have a trainee.
No. As long as you report it quarterly.
Quarterly.
Yeah. Now, if you have 3 locations, workers' comp, as long as you indicate that on your policy, they'll cover all 3 locations. So it doesn't matter where you keep the certificate. All right? Yes.
Worker comp cover all location, you say?
If you have more than 1 location, yeah. If it's the same legal entity. Yeah. Because if you have 3 restaurants but 3 different legal entities, you're going to need to get 3 different policies.
I know, I think
ก็ workers comp ถ้าเกิดว่าเป็นพนักงานได้รับเงินสดก็ควรจะมี workers comp cover individual มีเท่าไหร่กี่คนก็ต้อง cover ไปเท่านั้นถ้าเกิดว่ามีมากกว่า1สาขาก็แล้วก็เป็น legal entity name เดียวกัน workers comp ฉบับเดียวก็ cover ได้แต่แค่ว่าจำเป็นจะต้อง cover กับคนนั่น
We talked about this. Remember, you don't give that check stub. Penalty $250 the first time for every employee, every time you pay them. Civil penalty, or $1,000 the second time. I did a massage parlor one time, okay? Massage parlor, think about this. 5 employees. They got paid after every single massage. In cash, with no check stub. They work 365 days a week, no break. That citation was over $1 million. Okay? So it goes up real fast.
Still alive. They saw a lot of kids. They only have like 3 kids left.
So that's why it depends on how often you pay them. They were paid after every massage. They did 5 massages a day, average. Okay? The law requires you to pay twice a month. You don't have to pay every week. So it's up to you. You decide how often you want to pay. Okay? As long as it's no less than twice a month. Okay, misclassification, again, we talked about that. It prohibits employers from misclassifying employees. All right? Can we go to the next one? The citation for misclassifying an employee, $5,000 up to $15,000, or $10,000 up to $25,000 for the second time. Okay? So you don't want to get into that kind of pattern and practice of misclassifying employees as independent contractors. Okay? So what is proof of misclassification? Well, the employer, you're going to have to prove to us that they're independent I don't have to prove to you that they're not. Okay? So it's better not to do that if they're not. Next. Willful standard, well again, you're doing it on purpose, you're doing it, I could prove it. That's the standard I have to meet to be able to take this to court. So it's something that you guys need to think about. You can go to the last one. Now, if you have any questions or if you need more information, you can go to our website. Okay? There's a lot of information that I talked about there. You could download information. You could also download the Industrial Welfare Commission order that applies to you. If you want to email me directly, you have questions, you can email me at